Hi, and welcome to the New York Now podcast. New York Now is a modern wholesale trade show experience for retailers and specialty buyers who are looking for a rich, diverse range of new products and exciting new brands. Located in the heart of New York City, where the latest in design and fashion emerge, New York Now is not just a trade show. It's a community driving style, success, discovery, innovation, and collaborations.
Hi, New York Now podcast listeners. My name is Amy Lowenberg, and I'm the Retail Relations and Partnership Development Manager for New York Now. Joining me today is Mackenzie Farquhar. Mackenzie hails from the Midwest, where she achieved her degrees in marketing and finance, banking, and investments. Additionally, she has a degree in interior design and is a graduate of Goldman Sachs' 10,000 Small Businesses. In 2003, she moved to New York City, where after studying at the prominent New York School of Interior Design, she merged her love of design and business to form Lockwood, a Queens-based chain of lifestyle stores that caters to the local community with a main focus on custom artwork, stationery, locally made gifts, and Astoria-centric finds made just for the shop, which, by the way, has been featured in various national and local publications. You can now find the Lockwood brand in Astoria, Jackson Heights, and Greenpoint in Brooklyn. And you can find Mackenzie living happily in Astoria with her wife, cats, and daughter Greer. Hi, Mackenzie. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for joining us for our first New York Now podcast.
Is this the first podcast?
This is the first podcast.
I love this. I love this so much.
I'm very glad to hear that. We've actually talked a few times over the past weeks during these very difficult and unusual times. I hope that you and your family are still safe and sound.
We're good. We're very bored and happy and healthy.
Good. Well, I'm sorry about the bored aspect, but I am glad that you are all safe and sound. You know, we're all just trying to find our way right now, and it's more than clear that our landscape has changed. I know that you've been in business for, is it 13 years now?
13 years.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Before we dive into how you're managing your business, both pre and during COVID, and how you're using your social platforms to drive your sales, why don't you tell us how Lockwood came to be?
Sure. So I was living in Astoria, New York, which is a neighborhood in Queens in New York City. And I was sort of disgruntled with my design career. And I noticed my neighborhood didn't have sort of like a design shop or a gift shop. And so I wrote a business plan and it got funded. And that's how my retail store came to be. And over the years, I've, changed and evolved and learned. And now we have 5 locations throughout Queens and Brooklyn.
Well, it's very impressive. How did you actually come up with the name Lockwood?
So Lockwood is an old street name before New York City went to the grid. So there was a prominent farmer in this part of Western Queens with the last name Lockwood. And so there was a Lockwood Street just a few blocks from where the first Lockwood is located. And I just was sort of charmed by that name.
I'm pretty charmed by the story. I love the historical reference. I think it's lovely.
Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. You've got really great neighborhood stores, and clearly you are absolutely no stranger to social media with over 15,000 Instagram followers. Did you build up your social presence simultaneously with your store locations?
So no is the short answer. Having been open since, 2007, my first location had a MySpace page, just to put that in context for people.
Mm-hmm.
I used to use my own personal page, which now is locked down tight and is just photos of my toddler, to promote Lockwood. And around 2014 or 15, I had a young college student employee, and I was like, "Hey, Marie, should we have an Instagram for the store?" Because there weren't business pages. I don't think Instagram had intended that. And she's like, "Sure, I'll help." And so probably, for the last 5 to 6 years, we've had an Instagram account for Lockwood. And it's really my main love and the bread and butter of all the marketing we do for the stores.
Wow. Are you the sole manager now, or do you still have help in implementing that?
So I am a huge believer in delegation, and I get really frustrated and sad when business owners are still doing the me show. And I I would say that I only participate on our Instagram about 10% of the time. I have a full-time staff member whose entire job is just to run the marketing and website for Lockwood.
Wow.
And the bulk of her job is to run our Instagram account.
Well, I'll say that's very impressive because it feels very fluid to me. So if it's bouncing back and forth between you and support or support and you, it very much feels like it is a full-on representation of you and Lockwood. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. And I think that, like anyone who's delegating something, you find that person who has the same spirit or skill set, or maybe a skill set that's better than your own. I mean, that's like what the best kind of delegation is. So when I identified, Christina, who runs my website and Instagram, she started as a cashier, like a key holder.
Wow.
And you just find those employees who have that spark, and then you work with them and you mentor them. And it's not like overnight. We worked together for years to make this Instagram what it is now.
So it completely evolved for you.
Completely.
Well, what I like most about, at least I'll talk about your Instagram stories, is that they are extremely personal and that you feature your staff, your family, your very adorable little girl, Greer, as well as your vendors and your customers. Is there any sort of challenge you have in creating that consistency?
I think the challenge is always how time consuming it is to be really authentic online. It's so much easier just to like regram or repost other content that's out there, but that's boring and people will skip over your stories and you'll become less relevant. So, even that adorable photo of my daughter or the dog that used to frequent our brick and mortar stores when we were open or all of those things, we still might have taken that photo, edited it, made it brighter, added GIFs, done things to it to make it more appetizing, because Lockwood is a design store, it's a gift store. It's fun and it's trendy, and so our Instagram has to look and feel the same way. And so we put a lot of effort into those little details. And, it just takes time to make it feel like the brand, but I think it's time well spent.
Have you ever invested in any sort of social media marketing tools?
So, I think marketing tools is like a big term. I can tell you that we pay for a lot of behind the scenes apps that make our Instagram look and feel the way it does, including things like Ash and Film and other apps that can transform basic photography we're taking on our iPhones and make it a little bit more entertaining. But what we don't invest any money at all is we do not pay Facebook or Instagram anymore. I have found that to be a losing endeavor.
That's very interesting and really wonderful information that talks about how we really can run our business by ourselves.
Yeah, I don't really have a choice. It's like, of course, I can pay Christina, but I can't continue to pay and to pay and to pay. And I think that it's a very different world if you're investing a lot of your marketing dollars like directly to Facebook and Instagram. I think that there are businesses who have a lot of success with that, but their marketing budgets far exceed mine. My payroll budget and my rent, because I'm in New York City, are so big, and so I just have to split my pie in a different way. And I certainly don't want to scare anyone who's already spending a lot of money on Facebook or Instagram and is seeing success. That's their journey and it's different than mine.
Well, that's a very good point, because we all do have a little bit of a different journey and we are all trying to find our way. But I do believe that there are probably some aspects of our conversation that are going to come out that are going to be extremely interesting for others to hear, just because you've been so active socially. You've been able to really see the trends and how this shapes up for you. Let's try to spread this out a bit, and let's move out of Instagram a little bit, because you do have activity on Facebook, and I do believe that you have activity on Pinterest. Is that true?
Yeah, so both of those are true. I think that Pinterest, Facebook, and Instagram all have really different base user groups. I'm very active with a network of retailers who are all in the Northeast where we're located. Some of them are really drawn to Facebook, and some of them really do well on Pinterest. I have found Pinterest just doesn't drive the traffic for us, that it does. The amount of work we have to put into it doesn't yield the results that I want. I think that if you weren't one of the first people to Pinterest who gobbled up those like hundreds and, millions of followers, it's very challenging. Like, we've created these boards and we've spent the time and I just haven't seen the results. But where Pinterest really helps me is when we're opening new stores, curating windows. We always put that information into boards and make it public because why not? It's fun for people to sort of see the behind the scenes parts of things, but I can't say that it's like burning me dollars. Facebook, I do find really helpful, especially for events. It's really the only place to create an event back when we were all doing in-store events for them to sort of gain traction and have a life of their own and have a little bit of that viral quality. But, unfortunately, I keep harping on Instagram because like that is where it's at as far as social channels for us.
Well, I think it would make sense that you're drawn to what's creating more traction for sure. But it is also lovely to be able to have these other platforms to be able to get your word out, your name out as well. In thinking about the behavior of your audience, clearly you're going to be drawn to where you're getting the most activity. Do you suggest scheduling posts or are you reactionary?
So I don't personally believe in scheduling posts on Instagram. I just think that, in all things we do in social media, in the real world, I believe in authenticity. And I just think that scheduling posts is inauthentic. And I have certainly done it in the past. And then I've also seen brands who schedule a week's worth of content and then a hurricane hits or we're in a pandemic or something happens and that tweet or that post still gets published and it doesn't land right. I just think that especially now we need to be very aware of the messaging. And so I just prefer to do it at the moment.
That's actually very powerful. It makes a lot of sense to me. Are you seeing an uptick in your followers? Because we're obviously so drawn to our phones, especially now.
We have seen new followers, definitely. I can't say that like we've seen a surge of new followers, but what we have seen is a real surge in like connectivity. We get a lot more DMs when we post products. We sell products within minutes. For example, last night we posted some face masks that are being hand sewn out of Rifle Paper Company fabric by like a local designer, and we put them on Instagram and they were half sold out by the time I woke up this morning.
That's incredible because I just saw that post today. I just saw that post and I was absolutely taken with it and we're sold out already. I'll just wait for your next batch to come in for sure.
Pretty wild.
Well, I find that very interesting, what's driving people. Clearly, I would think that there might be some experimentation as if I do a post like this versus a post like that. And are you able to see how many people perhaps are being driven back to your website?
We can. I mean, really, when I saw your question before and I thought about this, the one thing that stands out to me is a conversation I had with a sales rep and a very good friend of mine, which is like, there is, for me at this moment, there's no time for metrics. Like in a normal world where I have my full staff and I'm just sitting calmly at my desk and I'm printing out the monthly sales sheets and I'm looking at Instagram statistics, that's all really good to know. But like right now, every day in COVID land is like so fast and so upsetting that I haven't really taken the time. What I do know is our conversion rate is sky high on the website. And so that's something that's sort of in my face that I'm looking at. But as far as like directly tracking all the social channels, I just don't have, or I'm not prioritizing that at this time. Let's put it that way.
Well, I would say you're a pretty smart cookie with degrees in business and finance. So my hunch is that you're able to take the information that's presented to you and turn that around in a solid direction. What if we're talking about somebody who might need a little help there? What are some of the points that you would say recognize this from the information that you're seeing from your social channels? And in turn, how would you use that?
So, on a good day, things that we monitored, Christina and myself. So how many likes or comments did your main feed Instagram post get? Do you notice if that's different when you post at different times of day? We really rely more heavily on Instagram stories. And I guess if there's anything I wanted to get across to business owners who are not comfortable with social media, is that really Instagram stories are your most powerful tool at this time. We'll look at how many people are watching those stories. When you have 10,000 followers or more, you have the ability to add a link so people can swipe up and go directly to a link. So we'll look at every link and how many people clicked on that link. If it was a shopping link, because you can, now tag products, like how many people purchased that particular item from Instagram. Facebook also has a Facebook marketplace that is shoppable. So all of these shoppable links are also applicable there. But honestly, I don't know that any of these metrics are totally useful, especially right now. I would go with more human things like, did I get a lot of responses to that post, whether it's just someone double tapping that, heart icon? Did I get DMs? Did people want to connect with me? Are they talking to me? And that's how we've been learning what we should and shouldn't be putting online. It's what sort of nudged us towards expanding our web shop. Like, I want that feedback from my customers. I'm living in this very sterile world right now, and data is also sterile. It's helpful, but, I like that Instagram really instantly connects me to my customers.
I love that. I think that's very informative information, and thank you for sharing that with us. I know that you drove a lot of traffic through your creative window displays. How are you now shifting your sales technique to relate to social selling? And you did just share how you're using stories. Has that been the biggest push for you?
Yeah, stories are by far the biggest push for us, and I kind of look at stories in two ways. One is just like a collection of photos that are curated in some way. So, maybe on a day where we're just really focused on getting this government funding, or my staff is sending out thank you cards to people or whatever, we're otherwise occupied, we might just throw out 5 photos. They're like, here's 5 candles you can shop online. But then other stories, we really take time, maybe it's Christina or myself who are talking directly to our customers. You can see our face. And so we'll have sort of scripted out what we want to say, and that takes some time, or maybe it takes time because somebody actually had to shower and do their hair and maybe put on a little lipstick or something, which is a reality these days. Or, the other day I shared what my Easter was like with my family. And so that took some time for me to collect the photos and thoughtfully edit them, caption them, maybe link to the actual recipe I was making so you could maybe make that for your Easter brunch or your brunch next weekend with your family. So, I think of Instagram stories in those two different ways, simple and complex. Mm-hmm. And definitely the complex ones are the ones where we get the most amount of feedback and people really latch onto them. And I always tell my staff who are doing Instagram stories, they must have a beginning, middle, and end. I think that people really respond to an actual story arc, and they look forward to watching them that way. When you just say something randomly and then end it abruptly, I don't think people connect with your brand as much as if you had sort of thought it out and storyboarded it a tiny bit.
I think that's an extremely important point. It's like having a conversation, and you wouldn't just stop right in the middle of a sentence.
Exactly.
Absolutely. That is great advice to give somebody. To me, it sounds like you're using your phone screen as your new window, and you have the ability to curate very complex displays now with a little bit of insight into your personal life, which is what makes you so human and Lockwood so relatable. Congratulations.
I definitely think that behind the scenes moment, if you're willing to share, is where the magic happens, either on Facebook or Pinterest or Instagram. People want to know who you really are. And I really encourage any retailer out there who is not savvy with any of these yet to start following as many people, brands, celebrities, whomever, as possible, so that you can find your voice and your style and sort of be inspired by others. But I bet you'll find the ones you like watching the most are personal.
I love it. So now on the flip side, are you finding these new elements that you're able to bring back into your store when we can get back to business? There's some creative way to continue this elevated insight and bring it back into your brick and mortars?
So I think we've always had sort of that like interpersonal connection with our customers on social, and I'm grateful we already had it before this started. The thing that I'm more curious about continuing is now a lot of us have created these pretty robust websites, and when we're able to open our stores, will we continue doing that? Because the social media is the bridge between our customer and the website. Before, it was like the retail store. The magic of being in the physical space was sort of like the bridge. So I'm just curious, if all of us will keep up these beautiful websites when it's all done. But I think that no matter what's going on in the world, we should all continue with social media and trying to connect with our customers that way.
Absolutely. So let's talk about product a little bit. What are some of the more popular products that you're moving now that's supporting your shelter-in-place orders?
So really the bread and butter on our website right now are bundles. We found that it's better for us to be able to do a bundle. We can move faster. We can bring a little bit more joy to people. We try and make sure that any of these little curated boxes that we're sending out have really great value, meaning we put more in it than, the customer is paying for, with the hopes that they are delighted when they receive it, and perhaps they will photograph it and share it on Instagram, which has happened with great success. And I think of that as partially a marketing tool as well.
Mm-hmm.
We have listed other things on our website, but really right now we're only listing things that are either practical, like face masks, or are giving comfort. So, candles and herb mason jars that you can bring a little plant life into your home, a lot of puzzles and kids toys, and really we're just trying to think about if, so like New York, our stay at home was just extended.
Yep.
So now we still have a month more of this.
Yep.
So I just let the girls who help me with the website know, let's only enter stuff on the website that would be applicable to that lifestyle.
Makes sense.
Because we sell clothing, so we could be entering sundresses, but that's dumb. You probably don't need a sundress right now.
I look forward to the day that I can put a sundress on and be outside.
Same.
You do a lot of product development in general. Do you have any new thoughts other than masks, maybe on something that might be going forward?
Well, sadly, masks and hand sanitizer seem to be the only thing going on. Mm-hmm. I would say no. At this juncture, I really don't have any other creative solutions, but I can tell you, I keep telling my staff that masks are the new headband, so that's our motto of Lockwood.
Well, that's fairly interesting. Masks are the new headband. I mean, I have a feeling that will go viral.
For my staff to make sure that when they do walk to Lockwood, because two of us there's three Lockwood folks employed who are sometimes going to the store, different ships to pack and ship things. I wanted to make sure they had masks that were provided to them from Lockwood, and so I got ones that were like gingham and snake print. And the other day, I saw one of the girls on the street, and she had a mustard sweater on and a black skirt, but her snake mask, and it was very chic. And I was like, oh yeah, before we were all buying these elaborate headbands, and that was the thing. Now it's our face mask.
I couldn't agree more. I'm seeing a plethora of ads. We're seeing how stores are going to be reacting post-COVID, how we're going to allow people back into our stores. Have you put any thought into that, on what the shopping experience is going to be like for the consumer?
I've thought a lot about it, but I don't know that me thinking about it means that that's really what's going to happen. I mean, the number one thing I think about is, will my staff be comfortable being there? Mm-hmm. Because we can't open if I don't have partnership amongst my staff members. And I think that it will feel a lot like the days before closure when we opened, and there was a lot of fear and anxiety on my staff's part for good reason. Mm-hmm. So I think a lot about, I have bought even more masks that are fashionable. We have a good amount of hand sanitizer. We have been keeping our cleaning supplies robust so that when we do reopen, we have all those same tools that we had as we closed. the one thing I keep thinking about that another retailer mentioned to me 2 weeks ago is like, how do we have a holiday season if we can't have holiday open houses at Small Business Saturday that's packed? And so I'm trying to give a little mental space to sort of upcoming major holidays that might be, where all of our profit comes from, and what do those look like, and how can I change the business, because I don't think we're going to have stores that are packed for the holidays. I don't know if people will be comfortable with that, or if government agencies are going to allow that. So I really don't know what the answer is, but I do try and think about it a little bit.
Well, you talk about a couple of things there. And so let's look forward a bit and jump back to some product questions I have about your store in a minute. I think that the consumer expectation is going to change as well. So as we're thinking about Q4, and we hopefully will be able to be outside of our homes at that point, how do you think, other than holiday specific, and let's just talk about basic sales, how do you think the consumer opinion might change? And what I mean by that is, we're used to curbside delivery now. There's a lot more direct to consumer. How do you think your business model will change in a functioning manner?
So one thing that we're currently doing, and it's a brand experiment, is offering free shipping on everything on our website, with sort of the hope that people buy several things and it helps offset our shipping costs. And if we find that the margins aren't drastically impacted, I think we'll continue that, because then it's the same experience. I think one of the things, amongst many things, that kind of stink about shopping online is that there's an added fee to doing business that way. And so I want to take that burden away from my customers. I have lightly talked with my remaining staff about doing free delivery within a mile radius of any of our locations, whether it's on foot or I personally drive it to the customers. I've also thought about extending our store hours so that we can have times where we really limit how many people are in the store, especially during the holiday season. Maybe we open at 10 and stay open until 9 and let people know that certain hours, we'll really only allow like 4 or 5 people in at a time, if that's something that makes you more comfortable. I think there's a lot of ways to get it done. And I think as a community of retailers, we're going to come up with even more clever ideas by the time it really has to happen.
I have no doubt. And I have no doubt that your brain is going to continue churning on that idea. And we're going to see some pretty amazing things from you. One element that you're working on right now, I believe it's still going on, is your VIP card program. Is that still active?
So it's on pause right now.
Why don't you tell us about the program?
So our VIP gift cards, when we closed, because we're in Queens, which is arguably the hardest hit neighborhood in New York City, we just closed and I told my staff to go home. Like, I didn't feel comfortable shipping anything out after a certain part. And so to keep a little bit of cash flow going, we decided to sell gift cards, and with any gift card purchase of 50 or more, they got a handwritten thank you card with a VIP card that's good for 10% off all in-store purchases for the rest of the year. And it does mirror our tote bag program that we did for Small Business Saturday last year, which was a tote bag that was printed custom for us, and it has a 10% bounce back coupon anytime you use that tote bag at any of our locations. So it's already a discount I'm comfortable giving. And really my hopes are that they think of Lockwood first, that it's something we can do for them as a thank you for basically them loaning us their money, because that's what it is, really, a gift card. And I wanted to make sure that they felt they were supported by me and that they knew it wasn't just sort of a cash grab, but that we really are all in this together. And we saw good success to the point where we had to pause it because we were having a hard time keeping up physically writing the gift cards, and we've had to then order an additional batch of the VIP cards. And we do have plans of maybe doing it again, maybe doing a contest, maybe handing out the 10% off cards to the first customers who are willing to come back and shop with us physically in store when we're able to reopen.
Well, that's not a bad problem to have in this time. So again, I'm going to congratulate you on that. I think you've got a couple of different programs going on that speaks to your creativity and ingenuity. The VIP card program, I read about your bundle first on your website. You mentioned that previously as well. And the tote bag. I remember being at your Greenpoint store opening and learning about the tote bag. And I thoroughly enjoy seeing how to roll up the tote bags on your Instagram stories. So thank you for that, because I was not doing a very good job prior to the tutorial. I know that you were previously, I'm not sure if you are right now, but I did see that you were running some sales. And I know that we have to look at our business in a very different way now. But why don't you tell us about what your philosophy is on running sales, but break it down for us pre-COVID and now during COVID.
So pre-COVID, I used a technique that I had learned, which was basically, you run clearance sales twice a year. And I think a lot of us as retailers do that. I really wanted to encourage my shoppers to know that we didn't regularly mark down items that weren't clothing or seasonal, and that only twice a year they come. We call them our epic clearance sales, and they happen in the summer and they happen after Christmas, and it really is a win-win for all of us. It's very rare we mark down merchandise on the floor. I would rather take old stale merchandise off the floor, mark it down, and put it back out during the sale when there's a little bit of hype. So that being said, during COVID, I already mentioned our bundles are like very robustly packed, and there's a lot of value. And so I sort of perceive them as all a sale price. They're not marketed that way, but a $50 spa bundle can easily have $75 worth of product in it, because I just want the customer to get it and feel so enamored with Lockwood and not feel like disappointed or shortchanged in any way, since I am hand selecting these things and they don't totally get a say within it. I want to make sure that, maybe if they didn't love that deodorant, that the hair ties and face masks were like a thrill to them. Mm-hmm. So it's just more and more and more. We do have a plan of putting all of our spring clothing online in the coming weeks, and I realize no one needs it, so we're going to make it basically almost at cost. I just want to get my money back and have some cash flow on that, because I just don't think that I need to be hanging on to all of the spring clothing until next spring. So I'm looking at it really category by category. Staples, there's no need for me to mark down. I think candles and kitchen items and kids' toys and the like can just stay at full price for the most part. But items we did bring in intentionally with spring, and then we kind of got caught right in the middle of that. I'm going to aggressively mark down.
So what I'm hearing is an extremely smart plan. You're looking at your inventory category by category. You are offering that discounted item for items that are not static to your basic everyday merchandising selection and that are purely seasonal driven. And I think that that's a really great way to go about it, because then you are able to provide that bundle at a lower price point that has a much higher value. And I was wondering how you were feeling about that, because of that internal battle of, do I sell off my products to, fuel the financial needs, but then how do I maintain a margin? So what I'm hearing is that you understand that your margin is going to go down overall, but you're still going to maximize within the categories that are the everyday personal care and wellness items. And that's helping you to continue to drive your business.
Yeah, and I'm sort of thinking about all of this as my, overarching motto for Lockwood was sort of like cash is king. Face masks are not going to pay my remaining staff members or my tax bills or, rent. Like, I do plan on paying my rent, and I have been paying our taxes on time, and I don't plan on getting behind on those sort of big things. And so I have to liquidate merchandise in order to fulfill those obligations.
So let me jump a little bit, because the activity that you have socially is obviously presenting the decisions that you've made merchandise wise, and it's very clear. Let me move into some other channels that we haven't brought up. Do you blog at all?
No. It's like a really funny thing because I have another business, and that is only basically a blog. And so it's a format that I'm really comfortable in, but I think it's a first class colossal waste of time for retailers to even think about blogging. I always tell people, like, if you're tempted to start a blog and you hear that it's like good for SEO and all of that nonsense, just write up your thoughts and publish it on Facebook as a post, or put it in Instagram stories or a carousel of thoughts on Instagram. Like, who's going to your blog? I don't get it. So that would be a no.
I can hear that very clearly. What about email? Have you reached out directly to your full email list?
I love email. I'm sad I haven't brought it up. I love email as much as I love Instagram. And I think that retailers should do everything in their power they can to collect email addresses.
Do you use any sort of systems for collection or?
Yeah, so for the Lockwood shops, we use MailChimp, and I highly recommend MailChimp, but there are other good ones out there. We collect emails via our POS system, so you can sign up to be sort of like a Lockwood customer, and it collects that data. We can collect email addresses through our Lockwood loyalty program, and we can also collect email addresses when you go to Lockwood for the first time. You'll get one of those really cliche, hey, welcome, here's a 10% off discount code if you give us your email address. So all of that works really well for us. Our POS is definitely the main system where we capture them. So now we're sort of lagging on our goals, but that's understandable. Sure. We try and send 2 emails a week, and we see direct and immediate responses when we send out an email.
Do you have any suggestions for the subject line? That's always been a challenge, I think, for many.
I think that the subject line is a place for your store's personality to shine. And every store is different. So it's like I don't want to project my own personal opinion on someone else's because, you know, your store might be really serious or sell fine jewelry or is for babies or, you know, in some way different than Lockwood. But I can tell you that my customer is 25 to 35 years old. And so our subject lines are witty. Like today, our subject line was Happy Friday, you're doing a great job, rainbow emoji. And I've probably gotten 35 sales in the past hour from that email.
Wow.
And the subject line had nothing to do with the product I was trying to sell or that I was trying to sell face masks or anything. I just think there's a lot of good tools out there and, you know, take your time. Some of the email providers have a subject line testing tool embedded, but you'll figure it out. You know, you send a few and you think that didn't go very well. Maybe I should change it. And over time, you'll figure it out what's best for your brand.
It's definitely a time for creativity.
I think absolutely. You've got that 1 second to really stand out from everyone else. And, you know, just like Instagram, I subscribe to the email list of like every retailer, big and small, that I admire. And I look, like, what are they saying? What's their subject line? Do they use emojis? Do they not use emojis? And then, you know, we just try and pull the best ideas possible and then, you know, kind of mold them into our own voice.
Lovely. As we begin to wind down here, I just have a couple more questions that I would like to ask you. But what I'm seeing here is if we just summed up your recipe for success here, what I've taken from our conversation is that stories are number one for you. And to make them human is an important point. Absolutely share behind the scenes and to find your voice and creativity. And definitely make sure that we've got a beginning, a middle, and an end. Did I sum up everything that you shared? Is there any other point there that you would want to add in?
No, I think that that's totally, you know, what we do. And, you know, I would just say, don't be afraid. Like, people come to your store because they like you or they like your staff. And, you know, you shouldn't be concerned that people don't want to see you or that you don't like the way you look on film. Throw one of those fancy filters on I'm like, tell people how you're really doing. They're probably also doing the same. Like if you're sad right now, they're probably sad too. And I think it's okay to be a little human on the internet right now.
Absolutely. Mackenzie, I've really enjoyed our conversation, and I'm just so excited to see what comes next from you. But before I let you go, I know that you are a very civically motivated person and you're very active in your community, sitting on a few boards. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about that part of your life?
Yeah, so I've often described Lockwood as my love letter to Astoria. It's a neighborhood that I just sort of fell in love with when I arrived in New York in 2003. And I really, as part of my personal philosophy, feel that everyone should give back in some way. Maybe some people have time, some people have money, other resources. And so part of the way I give back to this community is I sit on our community board and, I help give my input on things like zoning and the way that this neighborhood is constructing bike lanes or school funding or you name it, that is of interest to me, and it might be tragically boring to someone else, but I also sit on the board of a theater company, and I just think that, it's important, especially as a retailer, to be in your community and to give back and to really know who's here and what they need. And we try and make sure that all our stores, whether they're in Brooklyn or Queens, give back to local schools, school organizations, cultural organizations. We try and be as generous as possible within our communities because I just think that it's being a good neighbor, and that's important.
It's very important. And I believe that we are all becoming closer neighbors, even if we're right next door to each other at this time. So I love that statement. So we've learned a lot about you and Lockwood, and hopefully we've also imparted your experience and knowledge on our listeners. These times are changing day by day, and we all need to be supported and inspired to find the silver linings. All of us at New York Now want to thank you for being an active voice and inspiration for your fellow retail community and for sharing your insights with us today. And so in closing, Mackenzie, when we can finally reemerge from our cocoons here, where is the first place that you're going?
Oh, man. So my staff members and I talk about this a lot. There's a pizza place in my neighborhood called Milk Flour, like a local dad, and he just makes the best pizza. And I just cannot wait to go in person and sit and have food that's not delivered to my house and have someone bring me a glass of wine. And that just sounds like a miracle right now.
It actually sounds pretty amazing. Thank you so much for your time today. And I personally am really looking forward to the time that I can see you in person. Thank you.
Yes, likewise. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the New York Now podcast. Make sure to tune in weekly for engaging and insightful conversations touching on the most relevant topics facing our community today. Visit NewYorkNow.com to learn more about our market and how you can join in on the conversation.